Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's Art Nuggets, and we're going to talk about things I wish I knew when I first started watercolor and do a couple little short tutorials on watercolor painting. And I can't wait to get started, so let's hop inside. The first thing I want to talk about is brushes, and I want to say we don't need to overcomplicate anything, and we could get by with just one brush. My favorite is the number 8 round because it points up very sharp, and you can get a lot of detail work with it, and it also holds a lot of water, so you can really get some nice fluid washes going with it. It is the brush that I use the most in my painting, and it is the workhorse for me. And I think that you could either go up a size if you like a bigger brush, or down a size if you like a smaller one. But if you want to just keep things really basic, you could certainly start out with just that brush. So I'm going to show you in this little tutorial how I'm going to be painting this seashell just using the number 8 brush. So I've been doing a lot of seashells and painting a lot of beachy things, and I have my whole box of seashells out, and I'm just hoping that the summer comes sooner than it is to where I live, because it's been really, really cold here, and very gray and kind of just grim. So I'm just hoping that it gets warm soon. So I'm just kind of playing with my seashells and doing a lot of seashell painting. And so the number 8 here I'm using just to draw directly onto the page a contour drawing of the shell. And it has a really nice tip on it, so you can really get some really nice kind of graphic marks with it. And then when I want to go around the background and do some nice fluid washes, it also does a really good job with that. And it is really a very nice brush. You can blend really nicely with it. I'm doing some wet and wet in the back, right around that shell. And it's just a really nice, playful, easy to use brush, and I really do enjoy using it. When you start out, it's good to have a simple, easy to use brush. Sometimes it can be helpful to think about less rather than more things we need to get started with a new hobby or medium that we want to try out. Rather than going out and buying everything, it's sometimes just easier to start out with a few little things and then learn and master those few things. One or two brushes, a small set of watercolors, and start on small paper and then get going, and then add things as you learn and grow in a medium. You don't need a lot of things. You're going to need some brushes. You're going to need a set of watercolors. Usually they come with a place to mix your colors right in the set, just like this one has. You're going to want a blow dryer if you're impatient at all, because it really does help when you're trying to paint over wet areas so you don't make muddy colors, and that really does help quite a bit. And I recommend a good quality watercolor paper like this Fabriano 140 pound. So I wanted to share this reference that I use in my studio sometimes, which it's the time of year that you might see them around too. So I use the Whole Seed Catalog, which is this fabulous seed catalog that you can order in the mail. And I have a bunch of old ones that are outdated, but they're absolutely amazing, and it's the most beautiful seed catalog you've ever seen. And I originally saw it because a friend gave me a copy of it, and an old one, and I love the pictures. They're just really artistically taken, beautiful pictures of fruits and vegetables and flowers. And if you can't get out into the garden or it's cold a lot of the year, I mean, it is just beautiful and full of images that you can just start painting. So I just love it for that. So if you get a rainy day or you just don't know what to paint and you want to just sit down and do a quick little study of something, this catalog is amazing. And so then after I had one, I was like, I wonder if other people like sell these. So I use eBay all the time as a reference and like looking for like a used book or whatever. So I did go on there, and lots of people sell these used, so you can pick them up for not very much money. And because they'll ship media mail, because they're a book, you can get them fairly inexpensively. So I do recommend them because they're just absolutely gorgeous. And so today I thought I would paint a little tutorial out of the back of this magazine. It's called the Whole Seed Catalog, and I'm just gonna flip through and find myself a little flower picture. Some of the pictures are like a painting already because I don't know who they use for a photographer, but like the photography is just phenomenal in this catalog. It's just great, and it also has like things like recipes and stuff for all the unusual vegetables and things that they have in here. It's just really a great resource for so many different things. I just absolutely love it. So what I'm doing is I decided to draw a little reference with a pink colored pencil. The reason I'm using pink is because this kind of just will disappear when I start painting with watercolor. If you want your drawing to completely disappear, use a pink, red, orange, any kind of warm color like that. It will completely disappear and you will not see any of your lines. That's just a little watercolorist trick. Sometimes I like my graphite lines or my drawing lines to show, and I don't use the pink. Sometimes I will paint directly onto the paper with watercolor and not bother with a reference. But here I just decided to go ahead and use the pink colored pencil. You could also do it with a pink watercolor pencil. It doesn't really matter too much. Whatever you had. If you got into something like an Inktense, that's going to make a difference because it would be really runny into your watercolor. But this is just like a regular colored pencil, so it's not going to make any kind of a mark in my watercolor painting. Now, I'm reactivating these watercolors because they've been sitting here, and it's very important to do that whenever you're painting because it really does help your colors. It gives your colors a little bit of time to just all the pigment reactivates and you'll get more vibrant, intense colors. I also always tell people that the paint that we're painting with is the puddle that we make inside the paint. So it's very important not to be scrubbing around in there with little or no water on your brush. So you should either create a puddle in there by dripping water into the pan or spray into the pan and let it sit for a minute, because you're working with the puddle in the pan or the puddle you're making with the paint that comes out of the tube. You're not actually scrubbing around in there. You want to use what comes out of the puddle, and that's the pigment that mixes with the water. And then I usually use very wet saturated colors, and that's how I get the intense colors in my paintings. And so right now I'm, working around my white areas, and, you have to be a little patient, and that's why we also have the blow dryer. And I kind of went in with a little darker color in the center of the flower there. And, it's not a big deal. If it runs a little bit, you just grab a paper towel and blot. Watercolor is pretty forgiving. Even if you get a color in a place that you don't want it, you can get in there really fast with a tissue or a piece of paper towel and pick it right up, and your painting's not going to be ruined. Now, I am playing with fire here because I'm working with complementary colors, and they're both really wet, but I've done this for so long that it doesn't even freak me out. I leave the tiniest white line between the two colors that are wet until they're both bone dry. I did not blow dry this because I was being lazy, and I just went ahead and painted it. But as long as those two wet colors don't touch, I'm good. If they were to touch, they would run, and because I'm working with complementary colors, the complementary colors always create a dynamic color palette, and they look wonderful next to each other. But if they touch, they will create a neutral, and we don't really want that, because then a neutral is, really dull. So we try not to let them touch accidentally. If we're creating a neutral, then, obviously we would want them to. But in this case, we're trying not to let them touch. So I'm being very careful to leave the smallest, tiniest white line where it's wet, so that the green and the red don't touch. Okay. But I am working with extremely saturated color, and I'm also like mixing several different kinds of green together. I'm reaching up, and the little place to mix is above, just outside of the camera range where you can't see. So that's why you see me reaching up there. This is drying really fast, so actually, as I work my way around, it gets a lot easier to get in closer to the red and get all my leaves cut in properly. It dries surprisingly quickly because the water absorbs into the paper rather quickly. And then I had this other little leaf on the bottom. I put in just, for added interest. So sometimes it's just really interesting in your composition to add something off camera. So that's why I did that, and that's why I put that in there on the bottom there. So yeah, and now I'm going to create a background. Now, in the picture, it had a very dark background, and so what I did, I don't want to just put flat black in there, so I'm making a very dark shade of green. So a shade is any color mixed with black. So what I've done here is I've taken several of the green hues that we've been using, because we're using several greens, and then I've mixed black into those, and I'm going to have a very deep shade of green, which will be very, it'll be kind of a dynamic dark value in the background, which I think is going to look really cool. And then, the really vibrant cadmium red flower, which I thought was really beautiful. And then I think this is really going to be a cute little, just a small little painting, but I think it'll be beautiful. It's funny because, I think that's kind of why I really love this little catalog. It's just like a seed catalog, but it has the most artfully taken photographs in the pictures are just really beautiful. So sometimes you can just get in there and do quick little reference paintings and quick little paintings out of there, and they're stunning sometimes just because the photography is so great. It's just really fun. If you want to do a quick little painting and you have no time to get outside, or you're just at a loss of what to paint, and you can just kind of flip through it. That's why I kind of really enjoy having those on my shelf, and just sharing that it's something that we can use. There's a bunch of different seed catalogs I get at the house, flower seeds and garden things, but I do garden, so it's not like I'm just getting them to paint out of, but I think they're really nice to have if you enjoy painting flowers and plants. So this part of the painting, you can see, even though I'm using this round brush that does give you great coverage, it does have that really nice tip on it where I can get in and out of those tiny places, and I'm still able to do the detailed areas. So you can see how versatile it is, and that's why I'm saying, like, if you really need to paint or you want to simplify in the beginning and master, a few things before you get crazy with materials. I mean, you really can get by with one brush. And, it is fun to have a few different sizes. You might want another smaller detail brush or another larger brush, but I think the reason I paint with one brush a lot of the times is just because I get so focused on what I'm doing, I forget to change the brush. I mean, sometimes I'll go for a smaller one, but there's some really small areas on this painting, like the center of that flower had some really tiny little stems and things in there, and I got in there with this brush that has it has a very full, the base part of it is pretty full and it holds a lot of water, but it really comes to a fine tip, which is what I love about a round brush. So you can get a good watercolor brush will come to a very sharp tip. So you can get in and do all your details with that one round brush, because it always comes to that nice point, and it makes it a really versatile brush. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel, as it helps the channel grow, and I do appreciate it so much. Thanks for being here, and please come again soon.